So, Dan, do you remember the first time you were on, which was, again, I just looked it up, it's episode 44, which is like is like one of my, that's an early episode. And it wasn't even a podcast then.
Was it before? It was around the time of the New York premiere, right? At BAM Cinema Fest?
It was absolutely, yes, BAM Cinema Fest for
The Unspeakable Act.
The Unspeakable Act, which is my introduction to you, as well as Tally and others. And I remember that I had been doing the internet radio at the Bebox studio in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. It was an internet radio company or platform. They basically had somebody in the studio with me every time until your episode. And they had given me a tutorial how to set up the recording equipment and do a live feed, because it was, even though it was internet radio, it was live and it was going out into the internet and into the world live. So when we did it, we definitely did the live feed part correctly, but I screwed up the recording part. So
the signal is still traveling out to Pluto and beyond?
Oh, I think probably that original one. I don't know what it was not captured though, because I was supposed to capture it and aka record it live as well, and I fumbled that. So you were very nice about it, and you said, "Oh, we could redo it." So we redid it for the recording part. So there would always be a copy for replay. But it was even before I was podcasting. So, but I ultimately, when I started podcasting the episodes, which was not long after that, I had the recording from when we redid it, right? So I have that episode. It has been, I don't know if it's still available for listening, but I'll put it on the YouTube channel and this one, so people can listen to that interview we did, and then they can listen to this brand new one. And I assume this one will be a little bit better because my style has gotten a little bit...
Well, that's good. I'm not sure if mine has. My hair has gotten grayer. People can compare.
Both of us, man. Yeah. I have definitely more gray hair.
Indie film does it to you.
Yeah. So it's that 2000.
That was 2012.
12.
Yeah. I think the premiere was in June, so I don't remember exactly the date of the podcast, but June was when the film played at BAM.
Okay. I was very impressed with that film. I felt like you created a unique style that I was really enjoyed, because it stood out from a lot of the other independent films that I had been seeing.
It was interesting. This year I had an interview last year, I guess, with Cahiers de Cinema. Joaquin Lepastier interviewed me, and in his interview, he talked about how familiar my style was to a French audience. He said that I was like an American cousin of the French cinema, and that was such a relief, because here I'm kind of like the odd guy out.
Right. Yeah. No, I could see that. Even contemporary French cinema, because I mean, I guess I'm not seeing quite the amount of French cinema I used to watch when I was also introduced to a lot of filmmakers. So I was watching some contemporary cinema, but also trying to catch up with the French,
low budget stuff.
All the films by Truffaut.
Oh, yeah, the new wave.
But everything else, like just try to catch up with all those classics. So I saw a lot of French cinema. So I suppose Godard, you could say, or
sure, Truffaut, Godard were part of the same movement. They called it the Nouvelle Vague.
Well, yeah. That influence maybe influenced you.
And yeah, for sure. And it was I think there's still a certain thread of French cinema. And back then it was a thread also. Not everything. There's French cinema that,
Yeah, it's interesting also, would the French consider that style experimental per se, whereas we definitely do.
Yeah, I think the French are kind of used to it, but if you see like a big budget French film, you're going to get the same kind of professional sound mixing and everything that you see in a Hollywood movie.
Right, and you'll get their version of Hollywood actors in those big budget films too.
And Hollywood lighting and everything. But I think the French are a little more familiar anyway with this, and I don't think it's ever completely gone away. A style that depends a lot on natural sound. And to some extent an unadorned image. That's not a necessary factor, but those things sound familiar to like people who follow French films.
Now, it would be weird for me not to bring up that we're doing this remotely or at your place, I assume in Brooklyn?
Yeah, Fort Greene.
Okay. in Fort Greene. I'm here actually in Queens.
In Queens. What neighborhood?
The mean streets of Forest Hills, where I actually not far from where I grew up. Actually, my dad was. I'm in his apartment. He, passed away, as you know, a few weeks ago, and I was here to help. My sister lives nearby, but I wasn't nearby. I was in Williamsburg, actually, living in Williamsburg, and then I thought, let me station myself here for a while we're dealing with his health crisis. And he was in and out of the hospital. He was in a nursing home, a rehab center nearby. And I thought what was going to be very temporary turned out now to be 7 weeks later. And now I can't move, first of all. Even if I wanted to, I don't really have the option. And I have to clear out his apartment. So now it's turned into what will likely be into the summer. Probably.
My friend Christina in Toronto is going through exactly the same thing, living in her mom's house, who passed away just a little while ago. I don't know if she didn't have the plans to leave, but she can't if she wanted to now.
It's kind of crazy. At least it's very comfortable, and I've been able to set it up as sort of my own place for at least for the next couple of months, and then my son will be off to Los Angeles to be with his mother.
Oh, wow.
And I might follow for a while, depending on when everything, scheduling wise, for all the stuff I have to finish up here. But everything is good. Otherwise, are you able to work? Or obviously you have the film, and I want to hear about that and how you're managing.
I'm working at home through this pandemic, which is nice. So I have a salary, and
good.
So it's not a problem in that regard. And I'm not too claustrophobic. I'm kind of claustrophilic.
Me either.
So this is not as bad for me as it's for some people. A lot of people just want to break the door down and go out and take their clothes off outside or something. But I don't mind.
And I urge people to do that.
But I'm okay here somehow. It's not killing me. And I have this huge backlog of films that the treasures of the universe that I've been not watching because I was going to contemporary films and whatever plays in theaters. And
you fell behind.
Well, I'm chronically behind, and just hundreds of films a year further behind. But all of a sudden, I'm digging into it. So there's this ritual screening at night of one of the films that's been sitting on my hard disk since the dawn of time. I want to see those films so much more that I want to see almost anything that plays in a theater. So this is a definite bright side to the whole, death and destruction thing.
So you have QuickTime files, basically movies sitting on your hard drive?
Yeah, if it's movies,
some variation thereof.
Movies downloads sitting on my hard drive. From I will not be so indiscreet as to
we're not asking
to identify the source.
They're the source, yeah. No need to, but
they're generally films you can't get anywhere else for what that's worth.
Oh, I'd be interested in knowing some of those.
I'm not taking money out of George Lucas's pocket or anything.
Yeah, thank you, because I know he's hurting.
Yeah, he's. He needs us.
So, what's just a random example though of one of those films?
Well, last night I went classic American, which is my roots, and I watched a Gordon Douglas film from 1958 called Fort Dobbs, which was really interesting because the screenwriter was Burt Kennedy, who was writing all the Bud Boetticher renowned films right at that time, and this
Western,
Seven Men from Now, Ride Lonesome, Tall T, Comanche Station. Mm-hmm. So these are kind of a famous cycle of movies, and this film was very similar to those movies, but it wasn't directed by Boetticher. It was directed by Gordon Douglas, who is.
Gordon Douglas, okay.
I'm a fan of Gordon Douglas, but he's doesn't always seem to be trying as hard as other times, and this film was kind of oddly not one of his best, even though the material was the sort of material that served Bud Boetticher quite well. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that was last night.
And who was in that?
The star was Clint Walker, who was a cowboy TV cowboy guy when I was a kid, and you don't see him in that many movies. I believe this might have been his debut. Virginia Mayo played the romantic lead. I think Andrew Duggan was the friendly sheriff, and Brian Keith was the villain. Brian Keith, one of the great actors actually of the American cinema, played the Burt Kennedy villain, who has a certain kind of panache always, a certain kind of style.
Yeah. It's actors like Brian Keith who are deceptively talented. They make it look so easy that they're often not given credit and often marginalized.
Yeah.
And he did best known for television because it reached the largest audience. I mean, it's almost unavoidable.
To our
that you're gonna be
generation, he was the family affair guy.
Right.
But
opposite Sebastian Cabot.
But Brian Keith has a very impressive film career, which I would urge all of you to dip into during your quarantine time.
Yeah, he was around a long time.
Oh yeah, really good actor.
And what's on tonight's docket? Did you mention that already?
No, what happens is that my roommate and I have all these films.
Spin a roulette?
Exactly. She picks a letter.
Oh.
We go to the letter of my list of films that I want to see. I read them all to her. She makes a first selection. Usually she picks one or two or three, and then if she doesn't pick just one, I get to choose from the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And
she doesn't mind the Russian dubbing on your films. I'm just kidding around. I'm just kidding.
She does. She's a film person, and she doesn't mind.
Okay.
But she has different tastes, so it always winds up somewhere different than I would be. But I really like it because I'm seeing random stuff that I wouldn't have got to quickly.
Right. I was making a reference to the Russian approach. They have these two or three people that are famous for so what they do is they just speak over the entire film. They reenact all the dialogue over the whatever the original language is. So
the original language starts, and then you get 1 second or so before the translation obliterates it.
Yeah, and so that's how millions of Russians watch movies from all over the country, all over the world. Rather, there was a film about it, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I remembered where they interviewed this woman who did that. And she was very famous for her voice.
Yeah,
for her voice. I have to try to recollect, but I was joking that maybe these movies, the source that we had talked about, from where these are coming from, but.
I think I rule those out. I run across them every so often, and I don't bite.
Good, probably best. Well, I was glad for the opportunity to finally watch 14. I had been looking forward to seeing it for quite some time. I didn't realize that my big moment in the film,
the back of your head,
was the back of my head was the last couple of minutes. I thought that scene, considering how many hours we were there, had to. My gosh, what a.
Oh well, it's certainly not unusual to film a whole day and use a few minutes.
No, right. And I was talking to an actor yesterday, and I mentioned that I was going to be talking to you, and I said, the impulse is like I did with Iris Sachs and a very one or two other filmmakers that I volunteered for being an extra on, because it's not demanding in a way that most people would think it's demanding physically. It's demanding patience and that kind of thing, where you may be sitting on a bench for 6 hours waiting. Just kind of be patient. You have to be quiet. You have to be out of the way. You have to make yourself very sparse until you're needed.
The professional extra brings a lot of reading material.
Right. But I'm interested in having and I said at the top of our interview that, yours was a style I found myself very just connected to and moved. I don't know about moved, but I was something attracted to it. And so I was very curious to be on your set. So when I saw that post on Facebook last year, was it? Mm-hmm. I guess last summer.
Which one? Which post?
The one where you were saying open call essentially for your friends.
Oh yeah. That would yeah. August was the shoot, so just before that.
You were shooting at a location, which will remain nameless or unspoken at this moment. That I was familiar with in the neighborhood in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn, where you were shooting it. And so I was real curious to know what your set was like. So, because I don't have the patience to be an extra too often. And if I'm going to do it, I want to do it with a very, select filmmaker. Let's put it that way.
Well, it was a kind of a typical day because there's so many people around. And, it was not, usually we're just in a little tiny room somewhere. But there were a lot of people to keep track of. You were all very, very cooperative and polite, brought reading material and stuff. But I don't think the people in the location were especially happy with us by the end of the day. I don't know why, but we must have done something wrong.
Oh, really? That's unfortunate. Maybe, it's sort of like I've seen instances like that where people agree to something. You obviously paid them. I'm assuming. I don't know.
Certainly did.
Yeah.
And it was.
It was raining out. I remember.
It's a lot of people. It happens pretty often that you, without realizing it, you step on someone's toes. It's not uncommon.
Right. Needless to say, you won't be shooting at that location soon.
With my sparse shooting schedule, I can usually count on many years going by before I return to anything.
They may forget who you are anyway, right? But it might be an all-new group of people running the business where you shot. Very true.
I never made films very close together. I think the record would be like 6 years or something, closest 2 films I ever made together.
And there's now 5 or 4 features?
5 features and 1 short.
Oh, that's short. So, wow, you have now a real...
I have a filmography. And it's just the right time because I had a few retrospectives, and there were enough films to make it a little retrospective.
Yeah, I'd say 5 is a tipping point.
Yeah, it worked.
It's like substantial.
It worked.
Yeah. Let's get back to 14. When did you write that? When did you write it?
It was a slow process. I remember talking to Tally about it in the summer.
Tally Medell.
Tally Medell, who was one of the 2 stars. I remember talking to her about it in the summer of 2012. The idea had come about. So I think in the summer of 2012, I knew what I wanted to do and was writing it. It was a movie. I'm sure this is okay to stop me quickly if you don't like this direction, but this movie was the motivation in this movie was to work with Tally and an actress who wasn't in it, Caitlin Scheel. And I wrote it completely for the 2 of them, but Kate didn't wind up being in it, was too busy or didn't want to do it. So the whole thing was... I've tended to do that, I think. Like every other movie, I tend to write for people that I want to work with. That's happened in the past as well.
Well, I can only imagine, first of all, it's helpful to have people in mind because then you can write in their voice.
It's extremely helpful.
And unless that voice is so incredibly singular and so incredibly specific and unique, somebody else can do it. You may not be able to envision it at the time, but you pick the actor who obviously played Kate's part, I assume, is the other lead actor.
Norma.
What's her?
Norma Cooling.
Norma did a wonderful job. She was very good, I thought. Very natural actor. And I would never have thought for a moment, this would be just slightly better if, I don't know, Caitlin Scheel was in it.
Well, it's true. I think that Norma aced it, really did a great job. And, there were other actors along the way, too. And each one of these people creates a kind of phantom movie in your mind, which is a little bit different than the one that actually transpires. There's no sense dwelling on it, and I don't have any regrets at all.
It's hard. You said you started writing this in 2012, or formulating it anyway, in mind for Kate and for Tally. And, actors' careers are very, obviously unpredictable. So how would they be able to commit?
Yeah.
Her career has really grown a lot in the last 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, and I didn't even ask. I didn't say, listen, I'm doing this film for you. Are you going to be around when it's done some unforeseen number of years in the future?
Your only other option, I guess, would have been to hold off until she was available. But maybe that's not an option. We don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, it was...
By that point, maybe.
It didn't really... after Kate was gone, I cast Hannah Gross in the film.
Right, I thought that might have been one of the actors.
And then she got Mindhunter, so it was like something that took her away, and she really wanted to do it, and I really wanted to do it with her. She's wonderful, and I love her, and I'm really sorry that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But,
well, if you write more frequently, or produce more films more frequently, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not all in your control.
No, I don't know. I've never had that kind of life, actually, where I was just working on stuff all the time. I can't imagine what it would be like even. I mean, certainly most people work faster than I do, but...
Well, you're also, as you mentioned already, working, you have a job.
I have a full-time job, and filmmaking is difficult for me. For me, it's emotionally difficult. It's really difficult. Mm-hmm. And I think some part of me just really appreciates having finished it and it being behind me in my rearview mirror, and I just don't want to... I'm not the sort of person that just wants to pick up the pen immediately. I really want to draw it out as long as possible.
I forget if it was Mary McCarthy or Lillian Hellman, one of those sort of bitter, caustic authors said, "I hate writing, but I love having written."
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
writing is hard, but not the worst of it. Making the movie is much harder than the writing. All kinds of aspects of making a movie. Pre-production is the worst. It's really stressful. A lot of stuff has to be done, and it all has to coincide. It all has to come together at the same time.
It's made slightly easier when you have a great producer, though, I have to imagine.
Yeah. And I had some producers on this who did some work, which is, usually a lot of times in the past, my producers were not film people always, or people who were not, didn't have quite the central involvement. Here I had people who are actually, had produced movies before, so that was nice. But there's a fair amount of stuff that's really hard to offload. There's a lot of stuff that's hard for anybody else to do, and maybe I'm not good at the offloading part, but I always wind up having a really big to-do list, an intimidating to-do list. So that hangs over me during pre-production. Production is very... you're in a daze, so it's not as bad somehow. It's it can be rough if things go wrong, but it's not as bad as pre-production because it's happening and you just put one foot in front of the other.
Is part of pre-production... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And then post is fun.
Right. Right. The editing and the color correction and the titles and all. The post-production... but is part of pre-production setting up the... shot list for the production, or is that all done ahead of time so you know where you're going to be?
I do. That's got to
make it easier.
It's not everybody. I'm a little bit of kind of a planner, and I plan.
It's got to be much easier that way.
Every shot
during production.
It's easier for sure, but it's also some people wouldn't want to do it. This is like Hitchcock's style. He would always say, I did all the hard work ahead of time. Now I'm just executing it, and I'm trying to. That's the motivation on some level. For a person who's got a little anxiety, as Hitchcock did, as I do, there's a motivation of pretending it's all done, and now there's just something to follow, a path that's already been blazed. Yeah.
And obviously you don't storyboard.
I do storyboard.
You do storyboard.
I totally storyboard.
Oh, so let me rephrase. You must storyboard, Dan.
Pencil and paper, stick figures.
Okay, good. Oh, that's helpful to know.
I don't do anything really elaborate like Hitchcock.
You'd have to hire somebody to do that.
Yeah. I would have to hire somebody, and I don't need it because it's just for me really, and the camera person who knows what to do.
Right. So you know where the camera's going to go.
I know.
You know where you're blocking the actors, etc.
I know what decoupage I want. I know where I want the cuts to fall, how long I want the shots to last, approximately what the size of the image is, whether it's close or far. I know all that, and the adjustments that I make later are pretty minimal. They do sometimes change it, but it's not my practice to change it. So when I start shooting, I have that all done, and I can say to the camera people, I have to do 7 setups here. And then we have to go to one more place, and there's only 2 setups there. And I know that ahead of time.
I have to assume that all of that preparation does make production go as smoothly as possible, if not... obviously there are many things... unpredictable things occur, obviously that's the chaos that is any kind of production where you have dozens of people involved. So
I think it does make it easier, and there's a possible penalty to be paid. On the good side is that if you're a little bit nervous, as I am, it means that you can pretend it's all done already, and if you want a handle on what's going to happen, it gives you a handle. Mm-hmm. If there's anything that would have happened because of the spontaneity of the moment, you could lose that. There could be something amazing that wouldn't occur to you because you weren't in that mode. You were comforting yourself on how you'd done all the work, and you failed to fully exploit the moment. But, it's a price that you pay depending on your personality. I think there's a price on either side.
As we've established, 14, which is the new film, is your fifth feature.
Uh-huh.
You've written all of your features.
Mm-hmm.
You have, in other words, a lot of experience as a screenwriter now of your own work. So when you're writing, are you also doing some editing? Are you anticipating... Obviously, you're not going to have a car or a truck ram into the side of your set because you can't afford that in your budget. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
but I'm getting to another point. But I want to ask that first.
I think I get you, and yeah, you tend to like think about how you can't have a car ramming into something, but you also kind of want not to be thinking
constrain.
All the time. Sometimes, I mean, when you're writing dialogue, sometimes it can be helpful not to be thinking about what the camera is going to be doing, because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with something a little bit different, and then later on, usually when you're doing it, it occurs to you how you might film it. But it's not bad to have a separate place in your mind for that, and then later on come to it as a from a camera point of view.
Well, I guess that's, I can tell that you're not limiting or constraining yourself by easy practical solutions ahead of time, because one of your characters in the latter part of the film is a child, and a very young child, and that was the one I encountered the day that I was there on the set. So, and I saw you spent a lot of time trying to get a particular type of performance out of this very young child who is finding difficulty with it.
Lorelai,
why
amazing.
Would you write that into the screenplay?
It was the first thing I thought of when I thought of the idea of the film, when I realized it was a movie. And I remember telling Tally at my birthday party in 2012 about it. That was the one scene I had really vivid. The whole thing I had, the thing that made me want to do it was that there was a young child, that she heard the story of her mother's past, that she realized at this funeral that
scene.
She realized in the last scene that she was like, recapitulating something.
Right.
So that was what made me want to do it. It all kind of followed from there.
How did you cast this particular little girl?
I can't exactly remember whether I was looking, but Lorelai is the daughter of my hair and makeup person, Kelly Miller.
Oh, right. Now that I'm recalling that, that's right. I was there. Yeah.
And he and I did 2 films together. She did hair and makeup on The Unspeakable Act, and she's wonderful. She's a family friend. She used to work for my brother in Florida years ago. So I don't remember at which point Lorelai came into the picture. I think my family might have suggested it, but she was not written for her, but in it for a long time. As it turned out, like a lot of smart kids, she got bored with what goes on film sets. So right away, you could see after 2 takes it was going to be boring for her, and I've got so many outtakes of her rolling her eyes and sighing like, "Oh my God, you want to do this again?" Yeah.
That's one thing maybe that you don't anticipate, because you might find a child that's intelligent enough to intellectually understand that this is make-believe and that they're going to be, like they see on TV, but this is work, and they're going to have to be, they're going to pretend, but they have to make it come off convincing. They have to memorize dialogue, and they can maybe do some of that, but then pretty well, but then there's this other layer that no one can anticipate, which is that they're there for 6 hours. They're going to go nuts.
It would evolve in the most interesting way. Usually, we do a take or 2, and I'm not like a one take kind of person usually, so she had to endure that. And then on take 2, it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Her mom, who's on the set, would threaten or bribe or do whatever to make sure that at a certain point the kid realizes she's not going anywhere until I'm happy with the scene. And so. And she wasn't the sort of person just to dig her heels in. At a certain point, she decided, okay, and so she would start playing a little bit, and you can see her humoring us. You can see her you know, playing the game so she could like get off the damn set. But she would do it. She would play the game for real, and her 10th take might have been really fresh and completely different because she'd gone through all these emotional phases. Right. Finally decided these lunatics are never going to let me out of this room unless I play along. And then
you broke her will.
Once she just
no, I'm kidding. Right?
It's true. She realized she was a captive, but like kids are captives anyway. Kids are like subject to power, and so when they
it's
get
called
to,
school.
Like, it's called everything. Yeah,
my kid feels like he was until recently. Now he's captive here, but he was.
Yeah, it's the way it is. So when she would get to take 6 or 7 or whatever, and she realized that she wasn't gonna get off the set until I was happy, until her mom was happy. There was no trace of rebellion in her 7th, 8th, 9th takes. She would decide, oh well, and she would start playing with it because she had no alternative.
Right.
But she wasn't thinking like a prisoner in the 7th or 8th take. She was thinking like somebody who had to do it, so might as well do a good job.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. So would you even though she had a very, very brief scene, it was demanding emotionally, so she had to act. And so would you write such a scene again in the future for such a young person? I
think that there are a few things probably that I've conceived over the course of the years that I would not do again, but this one didn't turn out so different from what I had in mind that I don't think I would dodge it if it happened. I mean, it happened. It was an aesthetic idea before it was about any actors.
Right.
And so I needed it. Having decided to do this movie, I needed that scene. But I don't think I would say, "Uh-oh, I'm thinking of a kid again. Let's not think of any more kids." I don't think I would do that.
It was maybe more demanding because the little kid is the child is. I don't think it's a spoiler to say she's Tally's character's daughter, and required, because of the emotional weight of the moment, required Tally to break down.
Yes.
Each time that she did the scene, so they were like, that'd be harder on Tally.
Tally was like an essential part of this whole thing. I mean, she's awesome with kids in the first place, and I knew it. And
she is like a kid, yeah.
The first
part of her.
When I first saw footage of her for The Unspeakable Act, one of the things that I saw was her leading a whole room of kids in some kind of dance therapy job that she had. And she always has been like this. She's good at it. And I knew all along that, I was going to have a child in this movie, but it was going to be Tally working with her. I knew that Tally was going to be important. And she was super important. And she had her own rapport with Lorelai, which was different than my rapport. And interestingly, I kind of was thinking possibly that Tally would wind up like I would be directing through Tally, that Tally would establish a relationship, and that would. But it wasn't quite that way. As it turned out, Tally and I had different roles, different relations to Lorelai, and we both had played an important role. And Lorelai knew that I was the director, so I was like this authority figure, but she wasn't completely rebellious against authority. I think that kind of like worked with her a little bit. Whereas if it had been Tally as a child, authority is definitely not the way to go with Tally. But with Lorelai, I think she didn't really mind the fact that I was like this mysterious person pulling the strings.
When I mentioned Barry Sonnenfeld recently on the show, and he talked about maybe the most important director's role is just making endless decisions. You have to be good at just making a decision. Often it's like, is it a red folder or a green folder, Barry? The red one. I mean, just somebody who does that and owns that is what they're looking for.
Day for Night by Truffaut. There's that's
I forgot about it.
Truffaut's character says a director is a person who answers questions, and there's a scene where exactly that happens. All these, like, one person after another comes up to them and says, "Do you want this prop or that prop?" And he goes, "That one." Like, there's this whole interlude of Day for Night, which is dedicated to that concept.
Yeah, no, it's been a long time. Actually, I want to watch that again. Fortunately, I have the Criterion channel, so I don't think that's going to be too hard to.
It's good.
The story, which I guess I should have burying the lead, but the story of 14 is about, well, on one level, it's about two friends. One who takes on the role of the caretaker for the other, in the sense of always.
Maybe
one
you
is
should
always,
just spoil the entire movie. Maybe that'll be an increasing strain on the conversation if we have to keep this movie a secret.
Well, I'm trying. I think it's important to set it up at the very least.
Okay. That's okay. Go ahead.
Did anything I say that's part of the
no.
That's part of the
For sure.
the given dynamic of this relationship between these two friends. One is more needy, and
one has become more needy for sure.
Yeah, and it is a series of scenes of growing up in a way. That's the way I saw it. One was more stuck,
Sure.
and watching other people grow.
But it's also a love story between these. I mean, the one who has the greater, command of reality at that point in life also loves the other one desperately, with this child's love that will never go away, looked up to her so much always. So you have this funny thing going on where there's this total adulation of Norma's character by Tally's character, and yet the action of the film for a good long time is kind of the opposite. It's like Tally having to deal with one crisis after another, having to make sure that the situation doesn't explode, that Joe applies for the things she has to apply for. So but it's exactly the opposite under the surface. So that's texture. That's something that's in your mind when you're writing, and something that's in mind when you're directing it.
But it does point out how friendships are not always built on this kind of, ideal, beautiful, mutual respect and love that's healthy, because you choose your friends, right? So if, you discard those that aren't. But actually a lot of friendships there are other types of friendships that are not built on a healthy foundation, where, like you say, one character in this particular relationship idolizes the other. That's not a basis for a friendship, nor is the leaning on or exploiting that from the other friend.
There's so many things. How many of us?
It's a synergy, but I don't know if it's a healthy one.
How many of us can claim health? These things happen. Even a relationship that we might
you and I, what we have here, it's very healthy.
It's very healthy.
Every 10 years we get together for a podcast.
If you had to do it every 10 days. No, it's there's these feelings are under the surface. They cope with them as best they can, but everybody has these complexities. I certainly was never thinking of that as, a relationship that never should have been. It was an important relationship. It is an important relationship. It's not always comfortable for either one of them at this point. They wish it would be better for them if it weren't the way it was, but
well, you created it, and yet you have.
I created, and I
but
think
you feel.
I created it, and I think it is representative of the human condition. I don't think that the idea of a perfectly harmonious relationship, that would where's the movie?
Right, and also. Only long-term relationships, generally long-term relationships, can sustain the imbalances that naturally affect relationships that occur. I mean, I've lost a very important relationship because I just went through an extended period that was not healthy for the relationship. So, so I understand that.
It happens that you have to cut things off sometimes in life.
Yeah.
But when you're making a movie, or when I am making a movie and thinking about something to do, that practical thing of having to cut stuff off sometimes, or having to live your own life, that's never central. I mean, the love is central, and the connection is central, and all the other. I mean, you wouldn't make a movie motivated by a desire to. Well, I wouldn't make a movie motivated by a desire to demonstrate good hygiene in friendships. I much prefer to make a movie that's centered on a great large feeling, a kind of passion between people. That's a kind of a romantic thing, I guess.
Right, and that trumps the, pardon the expression, the intellectual.
Yeah, completely. It you should feel through this whole movie, before you even know it, you should feel that it's not just an accident that these people are together, that there's feeling there, that there's a connection there, that there's a past there, even if it's burdensome in the present. I would never want to focus on the burdensome thing without without this great passion that young Mara had for young Joe and still has, I wouldn't have bothered making the movie.
And so you create this story, and you feel then once you've finished it, it is an organic thing, and that whatever happens on the set in front of the camera is you're director, but at the same time, you have to listen to it.
You do. And it's like interesting. You want to try to cast it and set it up so that you could realize an initial feeling. And usually that works. Like in this particular case, I didn't feel like I had to sacrifice my initial feeling. But the very first movie I made, long ago in 1985, 86,
wow.
I cast it casually, too casually. I didn't know what I was doing. I had a naive idea about what actors were and were not capable of. And I spent a lot of time really trying to make this lead actor be something he wasn't. And I alienated him. I lost him emotionally very early in the shoot. It was a kind of a really difficult shoot, and I was unhappy with his performance at the time. But now I see it, I think to myself, he taught me something. He taught me that people are irreducible, that there's a movie there when you put a camera on a person. Mm-hmm. And now I feel like he was good in my movie. He was always real. He didn't like to not be real. This might have bothered me at the time because his reality isn't what I had planned. But now I look at it and I see somebody who simply couldn't be fake and didn't want to be fake on camera. And that is a lot to be said for that. That's like a big part of cinema. So, it's...
You're talking about 35 years ago. My goodness, you had to have been right out of college.
No, I'm a little older than that. So I made my first movie when I was 30. I was on the set.
Really?
I turned 30 while I was shooting it. And I was, I had all these ideas about how to make movies, and some of them I still do. Like we were talking before about the storyboarding and knowing what all. I did that right away, but I didn't. Learning how to work with people, with actors, was an evolving thing, and I was pretty naive at that point about that. But I've had occasion to see it recently because I had it showed in Spain when I was over in Spain in the summer of 2019. I got to see it again, and it's like I really like the fact that guy can't be fake. He doesn't know how to be fake. He doesn't want to be fake. He doesn't have the vocabulary to make himself fake. He doesn't have the training to like fake things. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that now. Even if he wasn't the character I conceived originally, I appreciate it. And why people are together, why two people should do something together, that's so mysterious in the first place that you could really, in most cases, cast the completely wrong person for what you want to do and still suggest some real thing about human relationships and how people might fall together. If you look at the people in your life, you don't necessarily see people that Casting Central would have put together. No,
you're right. I don't know that I would have. And it's very true. It's an interesting thing. I never thought of it that way. Your life is cast in terms of the people that are in your life. You're not necessarily always the casting director because some percentage of those people are given to you, handed to you, whether or not you're were just chosen that
and then
or not. It rankles you, but one day you're like, I'm glad that person's in my life. You learn to love them even though they complicate your life.
And here's the extra factor: you might not have chosen them, but your unconscious might have chosen them. Our unconscious.
Hair doctor, continue, please.
No, this is you can't know anything about people without dealing with the unconscious, and it's more powerful than our conscious, and it gets its way almost all the time. So when you see people and you think, what are they doing together? You should be like, there should be a little light bulb going on, like, aha. Once I had a therapist who, I was telling him the story and he held his finger up like that and he said, behold the great power of the unconscious. It was very dramatic, but I really...
Was he trying to be ironic?
It was perfectly civilized, normal thing. He was smiling. He was making a point.
So
to
it was
me.
meant to be. Yeah,
He was super nice, but he was saying something that I came to realize had a lot more was a lot more central to life than I realized at the time.
I see. You had a breakthrough.
I wish it was a breakthrough for me, but anyway, it was an artistic breakthrough. It was to pay artistic dividends.
So it's called 14. You also cast some non-actors, right? C. Mason Wells, who I know from, I think, is it the Quad Cinema?
Yeah. He was the one of the head programmers. Now he's at Kino Lorber.
Oh, very good. Right. Okay. I didn't realize he was at Kino Lorber.
But he's a non-actor, but he's acted a fair amount actually.
Oh, okay.
And he's a non-actor in the sense that I don't think he ever has had training, and he has to rely on his intelligence, rather than on professional techniques. But he's not the most non-actor person on the set. He's like been in front of a lot of cameras and always does well.
Very good. And it premiered at...
The premiere was Berlin.
Berlin. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was.
You had been thrilled about that.
I was thrilled about it for sure. I mean, I was aiming for it, but it wasn't certain to me that it was going to happen.
Right. And go ahead.
I was going to say I kind of knew that my career was a little bit better than it had been before. At the time of Unspeakable Act, Berlin would have seemed like I might have tried for it, but I wouldn't have had any hopes really, or wouldn't have had any expectations. But around this time, I thought it was possible, maybe.
Yeah, the bump of the Unspeakable Act success.
Yeah.
And then this one was clearly even maybe enough of a, at least, in the same level of quality and where people are going to...
I didn't know the level of quality at that point, but it was just a little bit. You're a little further in your, and people know you a little bit better.
Journey. Artistic journey.
You can reasonably hope for a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And then the American premiere?
The American premiere was actually I didn't really work that very hard, and I wanted to defer it. It turned out it was Mill Valley, which is
California.
Which is a nice festival.
I heard great things about it.
But I didn't go, and I wasn't working the American side of it.
Okay. Did that have any impact on the subsequent implosion of theatrical? Was there ever going to be a theatrical then? I mean, because if you build up an American, I mean, the Berlin thing is, you got at the top, let's say 3 or 4 international festivals.
Yeah.
So that's a major thing. If you didn't have that, you have to have something in order to get the film in front of distributors.
It was nice, and I had like some other very nice festivals, and Grasshopper. I can't remember at what stage Grasshopper came on to distribute it, but I was totally expecting to be in theaters right now. Right now, I expected to be in theaters.
Right.
So, obviously the plague has something to do with that. Change, but it would have happened.
You would have had a theatrical.
I would have had a theatrical. Yeah. The last time when I was distributed by Cinema Guild for Unspeakable Act, it was not a theatrical. The contract had to do only with home video and educational and stuff. But this time, it was supposed to be theatrical.
So you could have, I guess I could easily have seen it at the Metrograph or the Film Forum or something. They would have done it.
Yeah, it might. Who knows what will happen in future? I don't know if the world will assemble. I mean, it's interesting to speculate. What even as distribution has now got this huge hole in it, so does production. So I don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be a big hole, a traveling hole that maybe the two will meet, and maybe everybody will have their premieres in the future. Who knows?
I'm supposed to write I'm working on a special Filmmaker magazine edition. Mm-hmm. I'm sort of overseeing this special issue on film schools. So, because they do it every they have an annual issue every summer. This one is a dedicated digital issue now because so it's not going to print. So one of my tasks is to talk to faculty about what does film school look like. I mean, obviously they're all probably in the process of figuring out what the fall and the next spring is going to look like. But what does a new film school education look like? What is a new shooting films for the students. What are those going to, look like, etc.?
There are people who, if you want to make a movie, you're going to pick up a camera in your quarantine, and if you want to take a break, then
look at what was it, Jahafi? What was it, Jahafi?
Panahi.
Panahi, rather. Panahi.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Panahi.
Jahar Panahi was in
quarantine. He was under house arrest.
House arrest in
in Tehran.
In Tehran. Yeah, right. Didn't stop him.
Didn't stop him.
Even and not only being inside, but it was illegal.
It didn't stop Sofia Budanovitz, who just made a little short film based on this essay I wrote for Filmmaker magazine. I wrote an essay about Orangey the cat, the Hollywood cat. And Sophia, I was talking about Sophia I was talking about this essay to Sophia when we were both in Vienna this year, and she kind of conceived the idea of making a film about it, and she executed it while we were all locked down. So,
thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'm going to check out both of those.
It's online right now, but it might not be online by the time this gets broadcast. I don't know. But Sophia is the sort of person who, I think she likes to make movies, and she just works that way.
Yeah.
I
think the camera is being used by more people more than ever right now.
For some purpose.
Whether maybe it's not storytelling.
Yes. Well, a lot of us are looking at these Zoom screens and stuff, right. Which I wonder, it looks like a 60s De Palma movie, really, of these Zoom screens.
I have. I actually purchased because I don't know if you noticed, but I've been doing a lot of music and posting because nobody knows me that I've been a musician all my life. And I'm a songwriter and a musician. I played jazz guitar for many years, and then but I always just like this strong. Well, I've been posting the music to my summer camp community. And then I leaked a few got out, and then I started putting them on Instagram, and everybody's like, "What is this?
Yeah.
I had no idea you could play. This is fantastic." I mean, the voice is what it is. It's pretty. My voice isn't great, so I try to use it to the best of my ability. But it's kind of cool. But I bought a wide-angle lens because I'm thinking more cinematically when I shoot these things. It looks kind of cool to have a larger or wider.
But reality and cinema bends around
there you
reality.
Go.
There you go. Now you can see. Now you look like you're in a Stanley Kubrick movie.
A little fisheye thing going on.
The fisheye thing going on, absolutely. But it works the other way too. You don't have to make things cinematic. Cinema is going to bend around what we're doing.
Interesting. It's as though you've thought about it, Dan. All right. Well, 14. Okay, so it's going to be available thanks to Grasshopper Films, and it's Grasshopper Films, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and how do people see 14?
Oh well, it's going to be seen It's going to be playing online on the websites of a number of participating theaters, and in fact, Grasshopper already has a page for 14, and on that page there's a little section that has the logos of, I think, the 15 theaters that as of yesterday had come on board with it.
That's amazing.
The way the world is these days, distributors are keeping up their relationships with theaters, which I guess, of course, they would, even though I suppose they could cut them out of this and just stream the stuff directly, but they have relationships and they're trying to preserve them.
Good for them.
So the theaters get to stream the film. There's a split between the distributor and the theater. So if you want to support your local theater...
You get paid by the distributor. Good.
Anyway. I try not to think about money. Yeah, I get paid by
you're in a lucky position also because you're employed. But go ahead.
I have a day job. Yeah,
I know, but
But that's
you made something of value. But go ahead.
The way it works is that Grasshopper's shelling money out. If they make more money than they shell out, I'll get some of it.
Right, I got you. You're right. You're like a producer in your own situation. You get the proceeds.
It's a typical contract, and I hate to think what my life would be like if I had to live on making movies. Jesus.
Right. Well, that's all the government subsidies. Don't they help? All those government subsidies you get all the time for your filmmaking. Do you detect my sarcasm?
I do detect your sarcasm, but for the first time, a few Europeans have talked to me about trying to tap into that very source of income that you're talking about. It's all very amusing to me at this point. I mean, I'm playing along with everybody. It's like a big practical joke. If it falls through, I'm not gonna have my life,
right,
be destroyed.
I understand. You're of the mind. You're going to make films regardless. But it'd be interesting to see you in shooting your next film in Europe,
or not make them regardless. But I'm certainly not counting on money for them from anybody else.
Understood. So Google Grasshopper Films 14, spell it out, and you will find a number of options of how to see the film online. And
starting on May 15th.
Now, I have a nice screen here.
Yeah.
TV, pretty big. And so what I did last night is I saw my link a little differently, but it doesn't matter. I have Apple TV, so I'm able to link it to the TV. I watched it pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also have a projector, and I could have done that too. I have a projector.
A lot of people have made a lot of speculations about the difference between theatrical and home stuff. It's not like my emphasis is not on the differences. My emphasis is on the similarity.
Nicely said. You're a lemon to lemonade type of guy, or see the glass half full kind of person. But also, the theatrical experience is a communal experience, and I think that's another thing. So, if you are listening when you stream Dan's Film 14. Make it a watch party. Get some of your other friends to do the same thing and watch it together. Tally is in it. Name the other folks. C. Mason Wells I mentioned. Who else is in the film?
Norma Cooling and Tally are the two leads.
Right.
C. Mason Wells, Chris Wells as we call him, is has a supporting role. There's a whole bunch of people with...
the back of my head is in it. And
the back of your head is in it in the very first shot in the very last scene.
Right. That is my head. I recognized it. Yeah.
But you provided one of the best still photos for set photos of me giving Lorelei a plane ride around the feudal.
I have a bunch of them. Okay, we can leak it. And what did I want to say? It was reminding me. And I also got to one of my not recent but not that long ago. One of my guests came on my show that I met sitting waiting for between shots.
Who was
Scott Hamra, or S.A. Hamra.
Oh, yes. Who was playing the funeral director.
Oh, is that right? I don't remember that. Oh, okay.
He was playing the funeral director. He only was in one shot. After Tally cries, he steps into the frame and offers her, I can't remember what he offers
lunch,
her.
A snack, maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's my own movie. Right. I should really remember.
I recommend you stream it today. Is it available now?
No, it's not available until May 15th.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Well, when people hear this, it will be available now to stream.
Okay. Yeah.
Doesn't make sense to put it up before that. So after listening to this conversation, they'll be so inspired.
Sorry, you're one move ahead of me in this game of three-dimensional chess.
A little bit. Used to it. All right, well, terrific. I look forward to the next time we're able to do this. We don't have to necessarily wait for a film. We can talk about anything you like.
Given my pace of filmmaking, we're better off if we don't actually wait.
Yeah, well, we'll be... Hey! How's that? We'll be hard of hearing and have all sorts of... One of the unanticipated benefits, I guess, of doing this podcast, for as long as I've done it, because it's been through 2 of your films now, so it's a long while. Whereas some other filmmakers are on their 3rd or 4th, but that's okay. There's no rush. It's not a competition. But it is that I've been able to bring people back on, in some cases over and over, and it's kind of created a nice community. Yeah. I really appreciate bringing you back on, because, obviously you're a salt of the earth kind of guy anyway.
You came in at a time when I think a sense of community was starting to form. This thing always goes in waves. But back right then in 2011, 2012, I think a lot of people were starting to realize that there were a bunch of filmmakers coming out of New York and other places. They were getting to know each other. They were getting to see themselves. There's a little bit of a movement. Yeah, I agree with that. I think so. That's kind of right. And I have I have so many friends from that exact period that I met in 2011, 2012 that
And I was lucky enough to do something like this, which was like had almost like infrastructure to create and maintain friendships you're doing
Yeah.
And it does so much as I'm trying to do some goodwill here.
I was in Argentina in the fall at Mar del Plata, and owner Tukel was down there with
Is that right?
With his movie.
Oh.
And he and I met him when we both premiered our movies at Sarasota right before I met you. But in the meantime, he's made like 10 movies, 20 movies, and I made one. But whatever, that's good.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I know.
Good filmmaker too.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, Dan, thank you for making time, and we'll post this right after the film becomes available, so people, like I said, they can pop right over and watch it after this, and we'll help. Okay. We'll do whatever we can to get the word out about it. And
okay, awesome, thank you.
Have a great day ahead.
Okay.
All right.
Have a good day.
Right. Okay,
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.